Tell me if you are sensing a theme here. When President Trump's first national security advisor, Mike Flynn, was indicted for lying to investigators, what he lied to them about was his secret conversations with the Russian government about U.S. sanctions on Russia. The Obama administration had instituted sanctions against Russia. Flynn was telling them to not be too worried about that now that Trump was getting in. Soon after Trump arrived in Washington, Michael Isikoff was first to report that the first order of business for the Trump landing team at the State Department was also to try to come up with a way to unilaterally relieve U.S. sanctions on Russia. Well, now in this impeachment proceeding against President Trump, it emerges that what President Trump has been trying to do in Ukraine is not only to get that country to help him with his 2020 re-election effort, but he's been trying to undo the U.S. government's conclusion that Russia attacked us in the 2016 election, something for which we sanctioned Russia. He's also reportedly been trying to pressure Ukraine into settling with Russia over Russia's ongoing war and occupation in that country. The New York Times reporting this weekend that Trump has, quote, quietly been urging a deal to remove Western sanctions on Russia for what it did in Ukraine as well. So it was secret talks about relieving sanctions on Russia during the campaign. It was secret talks about relieving sanctions on Russia during the transition. It was secret talks about relieving sanctions on Russia when they first got to Washington. Apparently now it is secret talks about relieving sanctions on Russia between the president and various foreign governments. For a scattershot administration that can't seem to hold a single idea in its head for more than 15 minutes, boy, do they seem focused here on relieving sanctions on Russia, working on it in every possible way, including this breaking news tonight about not just the president's involvement in this, but what Attorney General William Barr has been traveling around the world trying to do himself. Joining us now is Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia under President Obama. Mr. Ambassador, it's nice to see you. Thanks for coming back.
Rachel, thanks for having me. Hey, and congratulations on the release of your book tomorrow, Blowout.
Thank
I know
you.
How hard it is to write books. Congratulations.
Thank you. It has basically killed me. I am basically dead. But
Doesn't seem that way to me.
If you get a chance to read the Russia chapters of it, I would absolutely.
Of course I will.
Love to hear it. Let me ask you about latest developments here in terms of this breaking news tonight about Attorney General William Barr traveling the world trying to get foreign governments to help him in an investigation that the White House hopes will undo the U.S. attribution that Russia attacked our election. That's just one of the developments that's being reported in this fast-moving story. What's your take on that one in particular?
Just outrageous. I just can't believe it. I have to tell you honestly, I think that we get to the end of the craziness and then there's a new revelation. And Attorney General Barr, of all people, should know better about doing this. And it does underscore to me what happens when people get close to President Trump and how he pulls them into his way of doing things, his way of conducting foreign policy, if we can even call it that. And it really saddens me as an American. This is not in America's national interest. This damages our reputation around the world.
In terms of the way Russia has suffered with U.S. and U.S.-led sanctions, obviously they were sanctioned aggressively in a U.S.-led international effort after they invaded Ukraine. They were sanctioned additionally by the U.S. because of their 2016 election interference. There have been other actions by Russia, including the attempted assassination on British soil, for which there were both U.S. and international sanctions. How tough have these sanctions been on the Russian economy and on Putin, and how much of a priority is it for them to get these sanctions lifted?
Well, you know, we academics debate how to exactly measure the percentage of how much damage it's done to the economy. Some say 1%. Others go up to 2%. And remember, it's compounded because the sanctions have been in place for several years. So that's one part of the argument. The second are the actual people on the sanctions list. Believe me, I know some of them. It hurts them, and some of them are very close to Putin. One of them that we've discussed before, for instance, Oleg Deripaska, spent hundreds of millions of dollars to get off the sanctions list and invested in Kentucky to try to do that. That shows you the level of effort that he was putting in. But I think the most impressive evidence for how important it is to get the sanctions lifted is how much time and attention Vladimir Putin has put to the issue, as you very rightly described in your opening remarks today. It is a central talking point that he does all the time, and they've always thought that someday, some way, President Trump would finally deliver on what he promised during the campaign in 2016.
In terms of how Barr is approaching this, in particular, this new news that I found, I mean, not very much surprises me anymore. I was legitimately surprised to see this report in the Washington Post that the reason that William Barr was mysteriously in Italy for this past week is apparently because he has been personally working the Italian government to try to get them to cooperate in this investigation that, again, they're hoping will undo the attribution of Russia attacking our election. He apparently, according to the New York Times today, asked President Trump to make this call to the leader of Australia, to ask for Australian cooperation in this probe as well. How unusual, obviously, when there are law enforcement investigations that have an international cast, it's not unheard of to have international cooperation and to have it asked for by the U.S. government. But this, with the Attorney General personally showing up in foreign countries, asking for help on this incredibly politicized thing, I mean, as a former ambassador, how unusual is that? How will foreign countries react to that?
Well, I think you made a great point. It's not unusual for us to cooperate with the Italians or the Australians about an intelligence matter or national security matter, but we're usually doing it to deal with countries like Russia, with Vladimir Putin. We're not usually negotiating our own intelligence agencies, and that's what is so extraordinary and sad to me about this reporting, and it just underscores how obsessed President Trump is with trying to unravel the facts that are overwhelming from 2016. And in the call with Zelensky, as you rightly noted as well, he brings up CrowdStrike. Why is he doing that? Because he's trying again to undermine the evidence that we have about what the Russians did in intervening in our 2016 elections.
Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia. Sir, appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Right,
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.